Right, we're finally getting around to putting up what is probably the most expensive vapour barrier I've ever come across. Hey folks, welcome back. It's a big barn build. We have finished our little pool interlude yesterday, getting all that poured. We've now cleaned up, we tied it up, but now we can forget that because we're on to block and beam. Prep work is done. We've got a DPC on both sides. That should all be level. Now we're going to bring up our beams and stagger them out and just use some blocks for spacings. Then we can do all the wet mortar bit in a minute. Right, excuse the noise because we're in the middle of having the roof cut open, surgery for Velux. We're getting on with this wall over here. So slightly different with this wall is it's going to be in solid timber rather than I-studs. And we are just getting ready to put our lintel in. So these are the jack studs, double jack studs either side, and 600 sensors. That means that when we're ready for insulation on Monday, we can board on the outside, we've got a vapour type barrier on the inside, and we'll be able to get all that insulation blown in. So we're going to do another box lintel for up top, a few more studs here, and then last wall done. This is how the block and beam floor is looking. So we yesterday grouted this with a sharp sand and cement mix, and that was all brushed in. You end up a little bit ridged. I don't know, we were trying to work it out yesterday. So normal blocks are 95mm thick. I don't know if maybe you always end up with a bit of a high spot. These just sit proud by about 2 or 3mm.
Maybe it's just easier to just spin it.
We do vertically.
Yeah. Oh, it feels so.
Well, we're finally getting around to putting up what is probably the most expensive vapour barrier I've ever come across, and I'll talk about that more later on in the video, because it's quite interesting how different vapor barriers are and how some of them aren't really barriers at all. Anyway, we're going to get this up. We've got to do, we've taken it down to just below slab height so we can make sure we can seal it down there. Then there's got to be an overlap, which everything will get taped. And then we're going to counterbatten over the top of this as well, because there'll be quite a lot of pressure on this when they start blowing in the insulation. So I've put a fixing up there. I'm going to get a laser along the top and then try and keep it square, because it's going to hold square.
It's rigid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't manipulate it too much. Anti-gravity chamber.
Get a mirror ball or disco lights in there, it'll be the same. Right, that's the first level up, one little bit to do. We're going to go above next. So what we've done is we've decided to staple it. We're going to then, minimal staples, because actually this holds itself nice and square. It doesn't need to be strained too tight. It's a bit of a kind of one of those things everyone's got an opinion on. Really, a nail going through plastic like this tends to self-seal itself. However, because we want this to perform as best as possible, and we spent a lot of money on the actual membrane, we're just going to put a bead sealant down the back. We've got some kind of airtight sealant, batten on it, and then that will clamp and hopefully seal it all in place. There's not much give in here, and we'll see how well it holds up when they put the insulation in, bearing in mind they put it in under quite a lot of pressure. We want it as drum tight as possible, but we're going to have the vertical battens to clamp it in place. After the install, we've then got some counterbattens to run in, which are slightly deeper, and we can run them at 400 centimeters, identical to what we've done in the rest of the house. But it's going in okay. It is super heavy gauge, so it is staying square. Otherwise, you tend to kind of pull it off square and then it creeps up and down, but the laser works well at keeping us on track. We are just about to finish up on our final wall of this room, getting it all battened ready for our insulation. I want to do a quick plug halfway through here to give you an insight into what's been going on behind the scenes here. Some of you will know over on Patreon and Instagram and everywhere else that our charity appeal that the girls have come up with this year is the shoebox appeal. Some of you will have done it at school, no doubt, or know about it in your communities. And they've been raising money, and people have been getting products sent here and all sorts of good stuff, and they're busy wrapping and getting all those boxes put together ready to head out this Christmas to children less fortunate all across the place. And we'll put more details down in the description, but if you want to support that, then Joe's done something on the website. You can go over there, you can buy a little token or a voucher, and then it says on there the sort of things that we're going to be buying to include in the shoebox appeal, and we will share with you how many we get done, packaged, labelled up and sent off. But back on with the battens. Like, rain has stopped play on our bricklaying outside, so we're coming to finish off this section. Dad's just cutting some of the battens so I can finish this short wall. Now, we did most of this earlier on in the week. It was not a fun job. It's proper dodge. Don't copy anything like this, because all this ladder work is not clever. We had the tower in here for this side. There's a great big hole in the floor, so we can't really do too much about it. Even if we put the tower in there, it's not going to reach the walls. So it's nearly done. It's nearly done, and then we can cover over this and forget it's over here. I'm actually going to look at doing that sooner rather than later. I just think it's too risky to leave this open. We've got the joists. I just need a load of chipboard. If I screw it down, we can screw it up again. Screw it up, pull the screws out again in years to come, and reuse all the timber. I just think that's going to give potentially a usable space as well in here. But yeah, not liking the giant bear trap in the house at the moment. Well, as I walk the plank, that is the job done and all set, ready for our final session of insulation, which is going to happen on Monday, I think, next week. James is coming back through. I think he said that he can fit it in next week, but I might need to help myself load in that hopper on the pump, which is fine by me. If it gets it done and gets it done cheaper, then I'm all for it. So this is, like I said, the last remaining walls to do. However, we will have a whole load of insulation internally, and that's for both acoustic insulation in the walls and in some of the ceilings throughout the building. So there's going to be more. But what I'm going to talk about in a future video is this project in itself, because there's a huge amount of things that I've learned over the past year about swimming pools and about indoor pools in particular, which I had no clue about. And if I'd known about them right at the beginning, this room would look very, very different now. So I'll put that video together in the next week or two. If you've got any questions, put them down below in this video and I'll go through it. But I'll share with you how much it's cost to this point, but also what it would take for us to finish this project. And I think you'd be surprised. I know I was. Yeah, naivety at its best. Anyway, we'll do a bit on the vapor barrier now, because this is something, again, that I had no idea about. You've got a bit of ambient rain noise the other side of the tarpaulin. And vapor barriers. So why do we need one, and what's it all about? So a vapor barrier is to prevent vapor, water vapor that's in the air all the time, more so in a warm, humid indoor environment. We want to prevent that air from getting through the wall to a point where it gets too cool and condenses, and we end up with nasties in our wall, you know, damp areas and condensation, interstitial condensation within our insulation. That won't happen in our building because we've got a breathable board on the outside, a breathable insulation inside our walls, and a breather membrane on the outside. So if for any reason moisture gets into our walls, it's always got an easy access point, an easy exit point to get out and away into the atmosphere. In this situation, it's a little bit unique. So these two walls are like that. They've got breathable build-up, so that if moisture gets into these walls through a failure in this vapor barrier, it wouldn't be quite so catastrophic, because it could get out. However, the big wall behind me and the end wall there, which goes through to the annex, those walls are vapor tight on the other side, on the warm house side, because that is our external wall of the house, and they are insulated in a way as well that treats them as the external wall of the house. Because this pool sits outside of the thermal envelope of the house, but it's still part of the same building, it was a bit unique, and no one really wants to give you a definitive answer. But from the condensation risk point of view, this is one of the only situations where you want to have a vapor barrier on both sides of the wall. And the reason being, we've got humidity, high levels of humidity both sides. There is a danger, therefore, that if moisture ever gets into that wall, it has no exit point and disastrous consequences could happen, i.e. we're growing portobello mushrooms off the bedroom walls upstairs, which we don't want to happen. Therefore, that's why I'm really conscious about getting this detail right in the pool, because the last thing we want, there's more chance of moisture and damp air from here getting into that wall than there is the other way around. So as I alluded to earlier, this stuff is crazy expensive. A vapor barrier could be as simple as a polythene layer, it could be as simple as a paint, but there are vapor barriers and there's vapor control layers. You see vapor control layers, things like Intello Plus or even a regular vapor barrier is usually known as a vapor control layer. It does actually let vapor pass through it, and as a result it means that if there's water vapor in your wall, it can actually escape back. So some of those intelligent membranes actually they change with the seasons apparently, and allow moist air that's gone through and is in your wall to actually come back through and exit, so it doesn't build up in the wall. That would be, in my view, a bit worrying to have in the pool, because it would be allowing moisture in and it might not be able to escape at the same rate as you want it to and could build up in there. Just my way of thinking. So I was keen to find a vapor barrier, and a vapor barrier is something more like this. Now, interesting, polythene, regular green vapor barriers, even some of the vapor barriers that look a bit like this stuff, they let through quite a considerable amount of water vapor. And I can't remember what the actual scale is, but if you look at the units of scale, I'll put it on the screen somewhere, I'll give you some idea of what those products allow to pass through them compared to this. And this one here and some of the equivalent products is well up in the thousands rather than 10 or 20. So that's why we went with it, and obviously there's probably a little bit of a thermal benefit being able to reflect heat back in, but that's not what we've got the silver for, that's just how it comes. We want to detail that really neatly and carefully around our windows as well, because that's another point where we could have issues, cold spots, and obviously with so much moisture in here, that's a weak spot. But all of this will be remedied and hopefully avoided by the ventilation system, which is required when you have an indoor pool. That's the bit I've learnt about, and that's the bit that was a bit of an oversight. The ventilation system that's got to go in here is probably the most important thing and probably the most expensive thing. And that should actually mitigate a lot of those issues anyway. So this is the secondary defence. Actually, it's a tertiary defence, because inside this is going to be battened and counter-battened. Then we're going to have our wallboard of some sort, which will carry tile on the lower half of the wall, some sort of specialist paint above, and therefore that is waterproof and probably vapor tight in itself. This is a secondary defence, but hopefully the ventilation would sort anything out before it got too bad anyway. So there we go. That's a little insight into why we went this way. There are a lot of schools of thought on it, and I'm sure people will say that there are differing approaches. However, we know that this room is going to be, once the top detailing is sorted, going to be pretty vapor type, and that means that we have control of where that vapor, moisture and humidity is going, and hopefully that's going out through our ductwork and outside. I'm going to leave it there. We've got the room done. It's ready for insulation. I'm following up on our previous insulation video when we get this done, and I'm going to explain a few of the questions that came up in that video on density, fireproof, moisture, rats, rodents, vermin, all that stuff, and I'll hopefully answer those in the next video. So thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.